SUH-PUP? Welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I am Morrow, your storyteller for today, and with me we have some more RPG horror stories. I got a question for the DMs out there. At what point do you consider yourself to be a good enough DM? I feel like I've been DMing for maybe about a year and a half in total, and I still feel like I'm crap. Because honestly, I don't feel like I'm good enough still. Even after a year and a half, I feel like I just need to keep improving and growing until I finally feel good enough. But like, does that feeling ever go away, or is it gonna stuck with me forever? Anyway, I hope to get some replies about that and see what other DMs out there or forever DMs think, or maybe you can give me some sort of advice. Let's get some RPG horror stories for today. Dodging a bullet. Light story, but here it goes. With my friends, we decided to expand the playgroup to new players, and I got in contact with a guy who wanted to join a game. We're messaging at the start in order to evaluate things and ask him, what type of character do you usually like to play? Since our campaign is a very narrative game, mainly centered around high fantasy themes and tropes, so you want to find a good fit. He goes, I have a love for evil characters, but I've seen that it pays to cooperate with a group. Otherwise the campaign don't last long, so I mostly tend to create neutral characters that often go in two directions. In the first, I aim to create characters that are simple in both their looks and backstory, but stuffed with irony, phobias, bizarre feats, and funny cartoony details. In the second, I create characters with a very selfish ego or firm convictions that tend to find benefit in creating messes or spite, even during battles or personal moments, to push others out of their comfort zone and make things happen. Of course, I have several characters that I have already created, at least 2 or maybe more are the ones that I would like to bring into the campaign. Yeah, I think I'll pass on him. No matter what kind of character you're creating, whether it's like one type A or one type B, at the end of the day, as long as the character you're creating, whether it be an edgelord, main character, main protagonist, mom of the party, dad of the party, whatever you're trying to make, as long as they have this one quality, they play well with the party. I feel like I could grab a bunch of my friends and we can make a bunch of joke, tropey characters, an edgelord, a cringelord, a weeaboo, a main character, syndrome character, whatever kind of problem, behavioral problem characters, like that guy kind of stuff combined together. And as long as those characters play well with the party, it will never become an issue. It would be a silly, tropey stuff. It would be a very silly campaign. We're playing ridiculous, absurd characters. But at the end of the day, as long as the party plays well together and every character in the party plays well with the rest of the party and tries not to actively screw them over, I think y'all can get along just fine. Though with this guy, with his second trope character, who is a lone wolf solo kind of guy that does whatever he wants, whenever he wants, however he wants, disregarding other players' moments or characters or whatever, just creates chaos for the sake of chaos when it's convenient or inconvenient. Yeah, maybe it might be a pass, because in that one it doesn't say anything about working well with the party, you know. Create chaos is fine. There's nothing wrong with creating chaos as long as it doesn't actively screw other players' fun, you know. Anyway, let's get to the next story for today. DM's favoritism for one player ruins the campaign. So this all happened on 1 or 2 years ago. The main people present in the story are the DM, male, sword, fighter, female, air, sorcerer, male, earth, druid, male, fire, another druid, male, and me, warlock, male. I know everyone in the story before joining the game. I was invited to a D&D 5e game that some people from our friends TTRPG Discord, we all more or less know each other there, were playing. At first it seemed odd to me because I knew the game was full and they had already played a couple of sessions, but Sword told me that one of the players had to lead the campaign and they needed someone to play in his place. I knew that the campaign was Eastern inspired and that it was a homebrew world where the spirits and elements were really important. I also knew that air, earth, fire were basically playing elemental monsters inspired by ATLA, Avatar the Last Airbender. Air was basically the avatar. So I decided to join and made a hobgoblin warlock that fled from his country due to not wanting to be part of a civil war, and accidentally ended up making a pact with a water spirit where he had to help him with sealing an evil water spirit. I talked with the DM to make sure everything was okay with him and fit the setting, and he said that there was no problem. At first, everything was going well, then everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. The party dynamic was cool and the story seemed interesting. We had to go on a pilgrimage through all the regions, visiting the elemental temples to try and figure out why the elemental plane started to manifest on a material plane, causing chaos and threatening to disturb the balance. But as the sessions went on, problems started to appear. First, after playing for some sessions, I got told by some people in Discord that the reason the player I was replaced left wasn't really that he left. What really happened was that him and Sword had an argument and DM ended up kicking him. I knew that player could be a bit stubborn, but he never caused any problems. I talked to him after finding that out, and he said that he had no problem with me replacing him. This made me a bit suspicious since I knew that the DM had a crush on Sword, but they talked it out and supposedly there was nothing between them. There's more to this, and it gets to the point that it gets creepy, but it has nothing to do with the campaign itself, so that's a story for another day. Well, I'm assuming if the title is correct, player favoritism and whatever happened with Sword and the other player and the DM, that probably could be an interesting story on its own, but it's a setup. A player was left, and apparently they were kicked because they had interaction with Sword, or some sort of a conflict. DM took appropriate, well, actually in this case it's a very inappropriate action and probably kicked the problem player because their crush basically had a problem with that player, and they were like, all right, remove them, gotta get him out, gotta make sure my crush doesn't get disturbed by this ne'er-do-wells or whatever. I don't know what kind of dynamic they got going on. Maybe there's like a whole simp thing, maybe there's not, I don't know. Let's keep reading. As we started to meet some important NPCs, but felt like they were a bit annoying. Almost all of them were basically perfect or constantly acted like they were the coolest or the wisest people in the world, and if we tried to ignore them or look for alternative ways to advance the story, suddenly those NPCs always had the solution to our problems or said that there weren't other ways. One time we were greeted by the ruler of a city who supposedly had been waiting for the party sitting next to a bridge, like it was a video game NPC that only acted when the main characters get close to it. In addition to the blatant railroading, there was a bigger problem that ended up being the main reason that we got fed up with the campaign. The DM clearly showed favoritism for Sword, making it so that most of the important NPCs that were interacted with knew her or at least knew about her mother, who would turn out to be a powerful kitsune spirit that luckily we never had to meet, even though she came from an island that was super isolated with the exterior world. And to this, the fact that every NPC was amazed when they met her and no one ever gave importance to the other characters. Like for example, the fact that Air was basically the avatar or firebending from another dimension and being one of a kind. The DM didn't really know much about D&D 5e mechanically, so the combats were a bit all over the place. He liked to give raid-like attacks to bosses where they would telegraph the attacks on the previous turn. He also sometimes made up abilities on the go, like for example, a boss that we spent a turn on disarming him, only for him to manifest his blade again on his hand. After the session, he showed us the stab block and it didn't have that ability written. Also on that same boss, we used a battle map that was a cave interior with a big abyss, and when the party started to prepare things to push the boss inside the hole, he suddenly said that there was no hole. Improving is definitely a thing for sure, but at the same time you gotta keep things consistent. If the enemy has specific ability, they have that specific ability. If they don't have that specific ability, I mean, DM can do whatever they want, right? But I think players would appreciate consistency across the board. If there's a hole on the map, then there's a hole on the map, DM. Just stick with it, because otherwise it's just like, oh, there's no hole on the map, you just flat ground, even though clearly the map has a hole in it. Consistency is key, and although as a DM you can flip-flop things anytime you want because it's convenient for you, because you are god of the world, your players are not going to be appreciating if there's no consistency about this sort of stuff, so keep it consistent. The worst part was when the campaign started to shift focus, and for some reason the main menace we were facing were demons, and the elementals suddenly had no presence in the story, even though that was supposedly the theme of the campaign. And also 4 out of 5 characters had backgrounds related to them. This change was due to the fact that Sword really liked the anime Kimetsu no Yaiba, and as mentioned, the DM constantly gave her favoritism. This has made it so that even though our main objective was still the same, felt like it was some side quest, and the real main theme were demons. I mean, that's not too bad. It could have been something silly like, I don't know, Boku no Pico or Higurashi or really any anime, but I can see what you're talking about. Clearly the DM is trying to impress though. Correct, if I put her anime style into it, then maybe she will like me. I think that's the kind of vibe we're getting here from this DM. There were a couple of sessions where the DM brought another friend of ours as an invited player, and we had to divide the party in 3 groups and take on 3 tests. I went with a guest character, and in a 3-hour session, we only had like 5 minutes of playtime and made a couple of dice rolls that in truth didn't affect anything. And of course, the main reason we had to take this test was because something related to Sword's character. Apart from little comments or snippets, all the other characters didn't get anything related to the backstories. Up to this day, I still don't know anything about Earth's backstory. It got to the point where I suggested having a talk with the DM to express our dissatisfaction with the campaign and see if something could be done. Everyone accepted, and we explained the problem that we had. Sword said that she didn't see any problem with the campaign and that it was mostly Air, Fire, and Earth's fault because they didn't take the story seriously. We were always missing the hooks. The DM ended up admitting that there were problems and promised to sort everything out. Took a lot of notes from the discussion because I've been told the DM had run a Curse of Strahd game previously and had similar problems. After this, we resumed the campaign, and after a couple of sessions where we did almost nothing, we got a big lore bomb that basically told us that everything that we had done related to the elemental plot was useless because the temples we had visited were fake ones. There'd be no clues about this at all. And this, combined with some drama that happened in Discord related to Sword, not related to the campaign, ended up breaking the campaign and it got cancelled. It was a shame since the party dynamic, except for Sword, were really good and we had a lot of fun interacting between our characters, but that was all the campaign had to offer. Also, all of this was broadcast on Twitch because the DM had been doing this for some years and we really don't have much problems since no one watched them. At least we can now watch clips from campaign and have some laughs. In the end, we broke ties with Sword and slowly started doing the same with the DM. As I said, there were other problems with those two people in particular out of the game that ended up worsening the situation. Up to this day, I still have an irrational hate against Kimetsu no Yaiba, even though I've never consumed that media. I don't think I've seen Kimetsu no Yaiba. At the same time, I'm really forgetful when it comes to names. I remember the plot points and the characters in general and like how they look and what happened in the story. Like I remember a lot of Ghibli films, but if you ask me for the names, I'm like, oh, I literally have no idea. I know there's like Spirited Away. That's the only one I know, and like Howl's Moving Castle. There is an edit to this post as well before I give my full comments, but let's go ahead and read that first right now. Edit. There was also this NPC that was like a cool drow pirate slash merchant that would constantly flirt with Sword and was always bragging about his adventures and how this was like his third or fourth ship since he lost his old ones, but somehow always got more. The thing is that one time we were traveling with him because apparently we could never find another ship available and he was always in the same place as we were. Coincidentally, we got attacked by a sea monster and the first thing the pirate did was scream and hide in the ship. This could have been funny if not for the fact that we were supposed to take that NPC seriously. We all hated that stupid drow, except Sword, of course. Right, and now we have a campaign basically where the entire situation, entire plot of the entire premise starts in one way, and it goes pretty cool, and people are on board. But because Sword is interested in this other thing, and the DM for whatever reason really wants to try to impress Sword because I want to impress the girl in the campaign because you have a crush on her, really decided to just like 180 everything and just flip everything, and flip the entire table upside down and change the plot just to try to get, I don't know, maybe in Sword's favors or something. I have no idea. I have no clue. He wants to be the sheath to her sword or whatever. Is that appropriate to say? You know what I mean? He's trying to basically buddy with Sword because they have a crush. They have a little cute crush on them and everything. To throw away the entire campaign for one single person instead of starting a brand new campaign on the side where they can have different campaign going on with Sword on the side, that sounds really dumb. Like you just throw in the entire campaign, throw in the entire backstory for a single person, for a single crush. Like, I mean, I don't know what can necessarily call simp, but this seems like has some very simpy behavior. It's just unnecessary. You don't want to prioritize them just because you have a crush on them or like you're in a relationship with them. I get your like instincts probably say, oh, that might be a good idea. They might like me afterwards. No, they're not gonna like you because you are being extremely unfair to everybody at the table. I don't know if Sword necessarily wanted to have the entire story just be bent around just because they got into a new anime or something. That seems like a very, very, very bizarre thing to get into. But I don't know what kind of conversations Sword and DM had in the background. Maybe they were plotting the whole time. Hey, maybe instead of elementals, it's vampires or whatever, or demons or whatever because of the anime that they watched. I don't fucking know. But I feel like at the end of the day, the rest of y'all should have just like picked up DMing. Like that's the best way to do it. You have a cool concept, you already have characters, you have the general premise of the world. Just be like, all right, well, if the DM is not gonna run it, I'll run instead, or one of y'all can run it, or find a different DM and stuff. It sounds like a perfect concept and a perfect way to like start up a new game that y'all can have fun with without Sword and DM. And not everybody wants to DM, I understand, but opportunity lost. Either way, at the end of the day, don't play favoritism. It just ruins the entire game like it did over here. The entire game just literally sunk because DM really wanted to just like be the sheath to the sword, to whatever it's that's supposed to mean. You know what I mean. I recommend don't simp, but if you're gonna simp responsibly that doesn't ruin everybody else's experience in a TTRPG game. And with that, that's gonna be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching and thanks so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales tomorrow. Bye-bye.